Hi guys, it's Debbie, and a few months ago I decided to make a video on the whole criminal Ezra Miller situation, but I ended up not doing it because I was afraid to talk about the topic, and I also had a feeling that the situation would escalate in the weeks following.
I'm sorry, no, you're not sorry.
But now with the trailer for The Flash being released and being a long-time fan of Miller's work, I thought I'd give my 2 cents on the whole situation. To get you quickly up to date on why I'm talking about this person, Ezra Miller is an actor who worked for many years in independent movies which received a lot of praise. Some of the most notable works back in the day were We Need to Talk About Kevin, The Stanford Prison Experiment, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Those were the times when I started to really enjoy Miller's work, and as many other people I started to notice their huge potential. Still to date it's hard to find an awful Ezra Miller performance. Of course all of this then led to bigger roles, such as in the Harry Potter spin-offs, Fantastic Beasts, and then the jackpot with a superhero role, The Flash. In the current era of cinema, getting a big superhero role in a mainstream movie, especially based on DC or Marvel content, basically means you don't have to worry about money for a while. At least you don't have to worry about getting film roles. As a matter of fact, Ezra got the role of the Flash and acted in various DC comic-based films. Everybody loved Miller, to the point that before Zack Snyder remade Justice League, many said that the character of Flash was the only fun thing that saved the movie. Good looks, charisma, always a smile and something funny to say, the media adored Miller.
They tell me my name is Ezra Miller.
But now, just a couple of years later, they've been arrested multiple times for assault, they've been accused of harassment, of grooming minors, and there are even videos showing a fan being strangled.
Whoa, bro.
It got to the point where every day there were headlines of Ezra Miller doing X wild thing in X wild location. And the odd thing was that some of the crimes they were committing were totally out of character for somebody as wealthy as them, such as breaking into houses to steal alcohol. Anyway, this crazy situation went on for months while their huge film The Flash was scheduled to be released. A teaser trailer had already been released. Fans were waiting to figure out how Warner Bros. Was going to handle all of this situation. And then a statement was released in which Ezra Miller supposedly apologized for everything and said they were committed to getting help and getting back into a healthy and productive stage of life. Now, I personally don't think Miller came up with that statement, at least not on their own. I think that at some point the situation was so out of hand, they decided to get professional help. Warner Bros. Decided to share that commitment and keep them out of the spotlight as long as possible. And as a matter of fact, 6 months have passed, and although The Flash is one of the biggest and most expensive film of the year, they're nowhere to be seen. No press, no interviews, no behind the scenes, no paparazzi, nothing. And I think they're trying to keep the audience as quiet as possible on the matter, probably hoping that given it enough time, the trending topics would change and it wouldn't be as trendy to talk about it. And it eventually kind of worked, as unfortunately since then we've had terrible natural disasters, the escalation of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, Queen Elizabeth dying, UFO sightings, giant cryptocurrency scandals, Elon Musk buying Twitter. So this tactic eventually worked because people like you and me who are up to date on all the film news, the behind the scenes, the actors working on upcoming projects know about the matter. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you want to know more about the topic. But I'm sure most people who will go to watch The Flash aren't aware of this, or they have heard about something. But after all, who hasn't got into trouble in Hollywood? They all live such a crazy lifestyle, don't they? And to some extent it's true. Many celebrities have got into legal troubles. And I'm not talking about the run-of-the-mill celebrity found with some coke or arrested for being naked after a wild drunk party situation. I'm talking about serious stuff which just got swept under the rug or which the newer generations just never heard of. Mark Wahlberg, one of the most successful actors working at the moment, was into so much trouble when he was younger that at one point he was arrested for attempted murder. Christian Slater, who's worked in dozens of movies and even won a Golden Globe for Mr. Robot, was in and out of rehab and jail and was convicted of sexual abuse. I'm not mentioning these examples to defend Miller or to point my finger at other stars, it's just to point out how many celebrities have been in big trouble and they still rake in the millions, mostly because people don't know or don't care about it anymore. The difference with Ezra Miller is the time in which the crimes occurred. Robert Downey Jr. was in and out of jail in a time in which you had to wait for the news at 6 to maybe tell you about a possible arrest. Anything Ezra Miller did came to the public in real time from the public. A 30-second video can become viral in a matter of minutes and people love talking about it and giving their opinion. Exactly what I'm doing now. Sometimes I think of famous celebrity incidents that occurred years ago and how they would have broken the internet had they happened in TikTok era. Think of when Matthew Broderick and Jennifer Grey were on holiday when they drove their car into the opposite lane, crashed into another car, killing the 2 women inside it. Dirty Dancing was released just a few weeks later. That would have been totally unacceptable in the current internet era, in which Benedict Cumberbatch is considered problematic for saying that Sherlock's hair is womanly. Now, remember earlier when I said how the media used to love Miller? That's because there was always a show with him, never a dull moment. Part of Miller's popularity and the fun created for fans was the actor always being at the centre of attention, always standing out, always coming up with the most creative answer, the oddest outfit, the wildest quote. Miller was always unpredictable, but in a fun way.
Now you guys start singing 3-part harmonies. This is the Justice League. We just like that. Justice League.
And while other stars would curate their image to the point that every single outing looked like a photo shoot, Miller would always be mingling with fans, wearing odd clothes, slouching at interviews with shoes on chairs, playing music, skateboarding, you name it. To put it simply, you wouldn't find Tom Holland joking about choking a fan in the back of a bar in Iceland. The context is completely different. There would never be a setup that would lead him to that situation. Instead, Miller was just like us. He would literally hang out with fans, but also suddenly thrust with an insane amount of money, the pressure of making a $200 million worth movie, worldwide fame and attention, heaps and heaps of drugs, no bodyguards or anyone of support. It's basically your local town kid that gets into trouble, but with the whole world watching and filming, making memes and reactions and videos and breakdowns, petitions. Who cares if Emil Hirsch choke-held and body slammed a studio executive? It's not as interesting. He wasn't the hot weirdo in the new expensive DC Comics movie. I'm not saying one is right and the other one is wrong, but I've always hated how Hollywood cherry picks everything. And the Ezra Miller situation was enhanced by the fact that it basically occurred over a span of a couple of months. It was one big messy summer, as well as Miller committing some very bizarre crimes. It would have been way more normalized and mainstream if he had been dangerously caught speeding down Hollywood Boulevard. So it was a very weird, chaotic, and extremely lucrative situation for the media. This is very important. While their name's making money, those articles will be the first thing to pop up on Twitter when you open it in the morning. The same teenagers who read those articles will probably go about their whole life without ever discovering of Mark Wahlberg's hate crimes. And all of this while this huge and long-awaited superhero movie that cost $200 million is scheduled to be released in a couple of months. To give you an idea of the scale of this film, it has both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton as Batman. And now, nearly 1 year after the scandal started to trend, the reactions to the trailer are already way more serene. There are still some comments about the criminal side, but most of them have been outshadowed by the images of Michael Keaton returning as Batman. So Warner Bros.' disaster management plan worked out quite well. Now they had enough time to get Miller prepped for well-planned interviews and press tours, earn back the sympathy of the fans, and get haters to still buy tickets out of curiosity, and in a few years people will forget about it all like the dozens of other celebrities with criminal records. It definitely didn't help that around the same time Warner Bros. Kept the Flash, they cancelled another big movie they'd begun filming, Batgirl. So of course they were accused of being very hypocritical. Then there was the trial of the century with Aquaman star Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp being watched by millions daily. Then just a few months later they confirmed Henry Cavill was returning as Superman, only to scrap that a few weeks later. So I think DC needs to get everything sorted, and I think they might try to wrap things up as much as possible, end sagas, close up loose ends, and probably start from scratch with new stories. In the DCU we have the new Shazam movie coming up, but we didn't really have any scandals attached to it. Blue Beetle, which has a completely new cast, and Aquaman 2, which has been set back countless times. And not in the DCU, of course, we have Joker 2 and the Batman 2, which will take a lot of attention for a while. Beyond that, everything is sort of in a production limbo. Apparently Deadshot has been delayed because of Will Smith's payroll requests, and probably the slap didn't help either.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
I don't know if they'll ever go ahead with another Flash sequel, so who knows. Again, we might see a lot of new projects with a completely new cast. So what will happen with Ezra Miller? Will he ever recover from this? My take on this is that if Miller decides to keep on acting, they're still in time to turn their career around and partially save it. Probably returning to indie movies for quite a while, maybe some darker roles, like what happened with Shia LaBeouf, who is now mostly associated with broody, troubled characters because of his real-life issues. I'm personally not going to stop liking Ezra Miller as an actor, just as I think Kevin Spacey is one of the best actors of our generation. I don't think their criminal record and their acting talents are mutually exclusive. I'll probably not see Miller in the same eye as before when I was a huge fan, the big smiles on set, the fun he used to bring, the excitement about their future. But at the same time, I am curious to see future work, track if, again, they decide to continue acting. Also because at the moment their other big project, the Fantastic Beasts franchise, has also been put on pause at the third film when there were originally plans for 5 movies. But trust me, unfortunately, money is what moves the film industry, and even if Miller went on a Godzilla-style rampage, there will still be producers desperate to work with them because of the amount of money their name draws to the films. I'm not pleased with what Miller did, obviously, and unfortunately, it's a pity they tarnished such a great beginning to a career. I personally love seeing actors start from nothing and become appreciated for their talent. I remember discovering Evan Peters over a decade ago, and I'm so proud of him now, winning award after award. So it's sad to have discovered Miller again over a decade ago, and then look where we are now. I'm not going to judge before a trial has settled everything or more information is released and confirmed, as remember, it's easy to point fingers when we're all just watching grainy TikTok videos outside a bar in Hawaii and everybody's desperately commenting on it all because it's what's trending at the moment. But unfortunately, I also have a feeling that those trials are going to reveal even more upsetting information. But for now, we'll just have to wait for more. And of course, I would love to hear what you think about all this topic, about Ezra Miller, about his career, about his upcoming movie, The Flash. So make sure to leave a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.